right.
Yep. Go on my end too. I just cleared up space. So
Where to go?
Okay. All right, guys, welcome to this very special interview, a one-on-one time. Returning is Alex from Zoink Games, community manager, at a very early 7:30 in the morning for you, or 7:45. I used to whine about being at 6:45 here in Ireland, but welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again.
Nope.
And I've been through worse with interviews with people from other countries, so this is not the earliest one I've done.
It's always kind of nice, like, you're not the worst. I've been through worse, but it's probably in a bar somewhere, like, oh, Nintendo Dad's called. Let's see if we can get someone else to do that. So we wanted to bring you on here and really talk about this tremendous success. And we started having this conversation a couple weeks ago about Faye. And just this amazing indie game that obviously, we talked back in June a little bit about the conversation that it was out in the horizon. We didn't know much about it. It has since obviously released. There was a big push for it and an amazing success, in my opinion. I've actually got it on the device right now. I don't know if you can see that a little bit. I'm missing a diamond. I'm really frustrated by that.
Oh, no.
I got to go find it. Yeah, just the one. I'm like, it's somewhere. I got to go find it. But how has it been for you? I guess we'll start there.
Oh yeah. Well, it's been like one heck of a ride, I'd say.
Yeah.
It was just we've been working so hard on this project for such a long time, and it's just when we got in touch with EA, they wanted to publish it and everything. That just everything took a new kind of dimension for us compared to our previous titles. So when release day was finally here, it was like, wow, what happened?
Right.
How did we end up here? But when the reviews started coming in, I think it was like was it at night they came? Like I think it was quite late because me and Michael was from Zoink was up just all night just checking all the reviews that came in. So I was like lying in bed with my kid because she can't sleep if she's alone. So just with my phone scrolling up and down Twitter, it was like, has anyone reviewed it?
Yeah.
And but the first few ones came in and were like 8s and 9s and a 10, like, and it was just really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit of kind of a different partnership with EA, right? Because this is a Zoink Games and EA original, I believe is what they're calling it, right? EA original development. So you said that was different, and you can definitely see this is visually a very different game. If you can compare it to Stick It to the Man, and obviously we've seen some screenshots for Flipping Death. This seemed like a very different departure from what we've maybe seen from Zoink in different degrees. Can you talk to us about maybe how you got to that? Where did the idea, the genesis of this come from? And then maybe that partnership with EA.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we kind of done one 3D game before for a long time ago. That was called the Core Gang. That was released for the Wii. And it was originally an Xbox title, but then a bunch of stuff happened, and it took like 10 years. It was 10 years in production between us and other companies and different publishers. And the publishers got shut down, and another company picked it up. And just I was not here at the time, but it was mostly like Klaus and some other people. But so it was a whole mess. But anyways, we've done 3D before. Or the studio has, even if it was other people then. And I think Klaus really wanted to do it again. And when the origin for the whole game idea was Andreas, which is the game director for Faye, he told us about it a couple of times, that he was must have been in his teens or something, and he was over at a friend's house. And he was out in the yard, and he saw this deer just standing eating on a tree or something, I don't know. And he just got this idea that he wanted to go forward and pet the deer. So he was like just slowly walking towards it and trying to go around it so the wind wouldn't blow and in the direction that it would catch his smell. So, and he like got so close that he could almost touch it. You could like feel the warmth of the body, but then he noticed him and it ran away.
Right.
And he had been like thinking about that, and it's like, that's quite a cool game mechanic, just like trying to connect with this creature that's maybe a bit dangerous, but still not. You don't really know with wild animals. Like it's always like a little bit of a risk, but you still like feel like, oh, I really want to connect with this creature. So that's where the whole story or the whole idea of the gameplay mechanic started. And it's been like jumping back and forth like an idea for a couple of years, and then we made a very, very simple little chunk of that gameplay and it was supposed to be an iPhone game or not, or a mobile game, and you were actually playing as some kind of weird human-like creature, I guess, and it was all very, very different, but anyway, and that, I think the thing was that idea didn't really work with our classic Zoink style or the 2.5D art that we've been working with Zombie Vikings and Stick It to the Man. So that's when we decided, I think, that this needs to be a full 3D game.
Right.
And we just got a good feeling for it when we started developing and trying stuff out. And we put an early build of it in Zombie Vikings, like a teaser. And then we saw, to get back to EA, then we saw Unravel, which EA published, and this was before EA Originals. It wasn't really a thing, but they just did that with with Coldwood, that specific studio, and we were like, oh, this seems nice. They have like they have their own game, but EA's full marketing capacity, kind of. We were at Gamescom showing Zombie Viking. It was like Yarny and Unravel everywhere, and Coldwood is also a Swedish studio, so you're like, oh, that could be us, you know. So eventually Klaus just felt, well, Fee is also a super great game. I'm gonna pitch it to EA, and I managed to get in touch with them and set up a pitch meeting. And he showed the game, and he was like, in the end of when he came back, he said like in the end of the meeting, it was like EA was pitching EA to us more than us pitching Fee to them.
That's great.
So I think they enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So that's the whole story really, and that's and it was a point of timing, because they just started EA Originals. They haven't announced it yet. They were looking for the first title, and there he was with the Faye, and like, let's take it.
And a heck of a first title to kind of be launching off, and obviously this is available on multiple platforms as well. The decision, I guess, let me ask you this, and because I don't think it's wrong, I just want to make sure that I phrase the question the right way. The decision to be sound-based, right? Yeah. There's no dialogue, there's no prologue, there's no, text that comes up. Yeah. And that it is so environmental. What were some of the challenges that maybe were faced in that decision? And was that a decision the entire way through, or was there waffling at times of like, oh, we should have a story, have a narrator, if you would, or a text bubble, or how did that come to? It
was a quite early idea. I think it was this feeling that we wanted the game to feel like the player to be in touch with nature in a sense, and we didn't want a lot of things to pop up and just break the experience even for a bit. From the beginning, we didn't have any text, we didn't have any map or anything. We just wanted it to feel like you're in the woods. If you get lost, you get lost. That's fine. You'll find your way back and things like that. But in the end, we ended up, after doing some testing, adding some small cues at important moments for just for the explain gameplay mechanics. And we also, in the end, added a map as well, just because we realized that the map was because people tended to not dare to explore without the map. They just follow the main route because they were scared of not finding their way back there. Right. And we really wanted this to feel like an exploration game where you could go out and just on a whim and just say, I'm gonna check out this cave, and then I go back. Yeah. So that's when we decided, okay, we really want a map, so that because when we saw people play with the map, it was a complete different experience. And it was the same really with the pop-up text. It was okay. We don't want it to be a disturbance, but we also don't want the game to be just frustrating and people to feel like, oh, I really have no idea what to do.
I think that's one of the interesting things I really enjoyed about it, when even from that first moments when the game starts, right? And again, you're Faye, and you're kind of there, and you're like, okay, well, where do I go? And out in that horizon, just on the tip of the eye, you can see the deer. Yeah. And it's kind of that visual cue, right? And it's not like a go here. There isn't a big arrow that says there, but the mechanic of, I guess, how gamer's game and how we play. Like that's a clue of like, oh, I want to go find that. I want to follow that. And even at a time where you are, spoiler for anyone who hasn't been playing the game, but it's almost a month now. But
yeah,
as you're chasing that deer and it's just outside of the sight of your view, like you can kind of see it in that frame, that fog. You continue to chase it, and then it brings you into that kind of main area, and you begin to understand it and teaches you some simple mechanics there. It's such a brilliant art design there, and I think understanding how gamers game and how they play and the cues that they need to be successful, but at the same time, to my point, not a big arrow, right, saying here's where you go.
Yeah.
I think really helps keep that immersion, and I think it's a beautiful environment that's created.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really what we wanted to achieve, and I know it's been really difficult as well because every person is different, and some people found it quite frustrating not to have many clear cues for what to do, while other people just embraced it. And that's just how it's going to be. People are different kinds of gamers. But there was one, I think it was a French press person who got an early preview, and he said, like, at first it was like getting into a really hot bath. At first it's like too hot, but then you relax and it's amazing. So it was like, it was too intense at first, but when I got used to it, I really liked it.
and that was one of the things that in my deer analogy at first, when I kind of saw the deer, there was also other area you can explore, and I felt like I went to kind of just fiddle around, just kind of exploring my own, and it felt like I needed to shake off what I thought I needed to do as a gamer. Yeah. And approach it a different way, and then once you kind of like, I think in a lot of ways, to your point, if you relax and let the story take you, as opposed to what you think the story has to be, you're presented with this really incredible story as well.
Yeah, and the story has been a big discussion as well. It's quite fun reading like Reddit threads about what is fear really about and stuff like that, because everyone has their own interpretation.
Yeah, it was funny. I was trying to describe it, and as a child growing up in the 80s and into the 90s, my best conversation point to it was, I was like, imagine if Fern Gully, the Last Rainforest, was a video game with a purple and gray shaded art style. This is the game, and people are like, that cultural reference doesn't sit with us, so we don't get it either. But yeah, so how would you? So let me ask you this then: how would you describe the story?
Oh, I don't know if I want to take away people's own experience. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it's been like, and the funny thing is that I don't think even, I know the story now for like what the game director and their own storyline is. Right. But when I played the whole game for the first time, I didn't know the whole story. Pieces of it, sure, but not every detail. And I certainly didn't. I didn't read it exactly like it was intended to, or what you should say. But I think that's part of the great thing about it. It's just a lot you can take away from just the murals all around the world, that you can actually try to, just look at them and try to imagine what they could be about. And all the backstories that you can find in the Silent One's helmets that you find across the world. But for me, it's always been like this, about this kind of conflict with nature, where human or people like try to control it in a sense, but still have to like try to just have it living its own life, not to ruin it completely. That's just my take on it, but it's not everyone as Zoink's take.
Sure. Well, I think that's interesting, Ray, and that's a great point that you raised there. Is I think that when a direct narrative is not given in the same context that we maybe typically see, right? So the princess is in the castle, go save said princess, or whatever the story may be of a game. It allows for the interpretation of the individual, right? And I think when you get into that case, you are more defining it as experiential art, which I think is a lot of ways what Faye is experiential art in a video game platform, because there's a story, but to your point, it's, what your interpretation of it is different than my interpretation, different than Zach or Jesse or someone else. And I think it's what you bring to it. And I think it's a fantastic masterpiece of what that needs to be. And I think every element, actually really supports that. And I mean, the sound design is absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah. I love everything. Joel he's done both the sounds and the music. Yeah. And I'm just blown away every time. We just released the soundtrack.
Yes.
On Bandcamp, and we have some other releases of it coming up later on. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's there now, and it's great.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. So after a big release like this from Zoink, what does the team do to unwind? Obviously, not catch the flu and get the entire office sick, but like, what do you do? And obviously, and being transparent, we know that Flipping Death is on the horizon.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like how do you, you've probably put in a ton of crunch time getting to this point, tons of hours, overtime. How does the company, the organization, recharge to prepare for your next phase?
We actually try to really avoid crunch time. I know it's very common on some companies, but we really don't want it if we can avoid it. But I know the programmers, especially the programmers, did work very hard, and they had to put in overtime hours. But I'm quite sure we don't have crunch time in the way American game studios have. So that's something at least.
Sure, yeah, a little more balance.
Yeah. Some people are still. A lot of people just jumped right over to flipping to make sure all the versions of it are running and do all the ports and stuff. Since we're releasing on all platforms there as well. Mm-hmm. Some people has gone over to. We're working with. When we announced Thunderful, we mentioned that we're also working on a VR related thing that we haven't said much about yet, but we're doing some experimental stuff there. So a couple of people are working on that, and then a bunch of people are working on new prototypes for new titles. So right now we're just trying to decide what's to come and what. Okay, we have these very cool ideas, all of them. Of course, we think so. But which ones actually work and which ones would people actually want to play? Right. So we have some that are super early sketches and some that are a little bit further and doing some prototyping. It's not that much breathing time, but it's just I think just going over to another project and do something else helps a lot. Like you've been working for this like crazy the past few years and especially the past few months, and just doing something else is quite relaxing.
Cathartic.
Yeah. And for me, of course, it just got even more intense when the game was out. I've just given up trying to answer everything on Twitter and stuff because it's just impossible. Things just are pouring in, which is amazing, of course, but it's also a bit sad because I'm used to just like talking to everyone, and now we're just reaching that point when we can't anymore, and that's a bit of a melancholious feeling.
Yeah.
So but now it's starting to calm down, and we're starting to get back on our regular beats and track again. So we'll see what happens next.
That's great. Yeah. Now, and I think, we'll maybe lean into this a little bit. As you mentioned here a couple moments ago, that there was a big announcement actually right around the time, or it was, I think it was right before or right after the release. I apologize. My days are blurring together.
Before, I think.
Right before, right? The kind of partnership, if you would, with Image and Forum, for obviously known for SteamWorld Dig and SteamWorld Heist and just Steam Worlds, and joining together to create Thunderful Games. So can you talk to us a little bit about what does that mean? I think originally people thought, well, they're shutting down both shops and they're going to be this new thing, but that's really not true. Am I correct in that?
No, not exactly. The thing is, we've always been like partners in crimes in a way. We've been doing all these conventions together and doing discussing different marketing stuff and sometimes borrowing stuff from each other in between projects and things like that. But we just wanted to make that collaboration more intense. What's happened is that we also owned both of the companies are owned partly by the same company, which is called Bergsala, which is like Nintendo's distributor in the Nordic countries. Okay. So we already have a shared owner. So what's happened is that Brian and Klaus has created a company called Thunderful. And that is a parent company now to both Image and Form and Zoink. So both Zoink and Image and Form will still be around. But it will give us a lot of like just things that just make things easier. Like we can, if we go to an exhibition or a convention, we can just rent a booth as Thunderful. And we can both use that one. And that sounds like a simple thing, but it's really been annoying that we haven't been able to do that before, because it's always like, we want to share a booth. And like, no, you can't. We can only have one company in one booth. But we want to do it together.
Forget you guys. We'll find a loophole. We'll make our own.
Yeah. We make a new company. The big thing is that we're moving in together, so we're getting a new office.
You guys have exchanged each other's keys, and like you're mixing your CDs together now.
Exactly.
Well, they were already leaving their toothbrush over at the other place, anyways.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
It just makes sense. Make some room in the drawers.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how the office. People have been there to see it, but I haven't yet. So I'm not sure how exactly it's going to work. But I think we will have like an image and form part of the office and a Zoink part of the office. But then we will share all like meeting rooms and the dining areas and stuff like that. And it will just be so much easier to collaborate around stuff. And we can just walk by and, hey, how do you do this thing? And how do you fix that? And we can just, because our games are quite different. So we have a lot to learn from each other, and they're really heavy on the gameplay mechanics side, and we're very heavy on the art side. And so it feels like just a really good match. We can learn from one another and things like that. And it's also, if we in the future come up with this amazing game project idea, which needs like 40 people to create it, then we have a good opportunity for that.
Right.
But that's not on the horizon right now, but it's always just nice to know we have options and that we can work together in every which way we feel is necessary or what we feel like doing.
Right. So where does that relationship with, Image and Forum, like how does that originate? Is it the fact that you're kind of relatively in the same region? Is it, they went to college together and they're best buddies, and like how does that come to be?
I think it's mainly that we're in the same region. And I've read this story. I heard Klaus tell it sometime, but I think that Brian and Klaus met at some kind of gaming thing here in Sweden. And that at first was like, oh, who's this douchebag? I think like Klaus was very like honest about something a little bit too and sounded really harsh, and Brian was like, oh, what is this guy's problem, or if it was the other way around, I don't remember, but one of them thought something like that. But in the end, they just started to appreciate that they could like be honest about each other's ideas and just work, bounce ideas off each other and talk about the whole gaming scene in Sweden and stuff like that. And they became really, really great friends. So they've always been sharing, all the big company secrets and stuff like that. They always talk to each other about it. So now they can hang out all day too.
So now work's definitely not getting done. They're just going to hang out and play foosball. And...
Yeah. So that's where it started, and then just both companies started to grow and made bigger and bigger stuff, and we held quite of the same pace, in growing studios and making new games. So that's been really great.
That's fantastic. Excellent. So I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Flipping Death, right? We were here last year talking about it, and a little bit of obviously Stick It to the Man was released on the Switch in November, and I think that seemed to receive some. Let's talk about a little bit about that. Stick It to the Man was on the Wii U, if we're going to the Nintendo side first, the Wii U, and then moved over to the Switch. How was that to move it over? Relatively easy, comfortable process?
The Switch is really easy to work with. We're working with Unity, so it's like, I shouldn't say it's pain-free to make new platforms, but it's relatively pain-free compared to other engines. So but I think from what I heard from the programmers and the developers, it's really the Switch has been really easy to work with. There was some kinks with it with Unity in the beginning, because we were quite early with working with the Switch, so everything wasn't really in place yet. But in the end, it worked out, and Stick It was a great thing for us to do, because now we've already released the game on the Switch, so it was good practice for just now that we're releasing Flipping Death, since we got a lot of help from EA with the Fear one, but we were doing everything ourselves with flipping. So it was a good trial project to just move it over to the Switch, and now we can do a whole new game on the Switch instead.
That's great. And what's going on here? Sorry, my camera is flipping around. Sorry. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about Flipping Death. we had a Nintendo Direct yesterday. I believe today is yesterday, if that makes sense. We didn't. I'm confused here. Sure. We didn't hear Flipping Death mentioned. Do we have an outline of potentially when we might be expecting that? Because I think that looks like it's a. And I guess let me ask this: how is Flipping Death connected to Stick It to the Man?
Oh, well, it's if you have played Stick It to the Man, you will recognize some people in Flipping Death. If you haven't played Stick It to the Man, it's absolutely no problem. It doesn't like affect the story, or it's just some fun hints towards Stick It, and some characters reoccurring, some characters that people really like from Stick It are getting some new time.
So is Ted coming back?
I don't think Ted is coming back, but Dr. Brahm is coming back.
Oh, okay. He was fun too.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's definitely, it's like it takes place in kind of the same kind of universe, but it doesn't, the story doesn't affect one another, so you don't have to feel like, oh, I need to go play Stick. Of course you can.
You should go play.
But it doesn't matter in which order you play the games.
That's great. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And is there a potential release for when Flipping Death is aimed to be? I think I heard some rumors of it as well, but maybe I'll let you talk about that.
I was in a podcast with Mark from the Warp Whistle.
We don't like Mark from the Warp Whistle.
Oh, okay.
I'm just giving you a hard time. No, he's Canadian. We love him.
Sorry, I said anything. No, but I think I said to him like, definitely this year, definitely this part of the year, the first half of the year, most certainly this spring.
Fair enough. Excellent. Okay, so we're looking sometime before
like April
July,
to June.
Actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
we just like, when I think I talked about this before in some podcasts and stuff, but we had a lot of issues when we released Zombie Vikings due to having an external deadline that we had to follow, and if we hadn't had that deadline, we would just have postponed it a bit, but we couldn't. So we had to release the game knowing that there was a bunch of bugs in it, which of course affected the score a lot and just made for a whole lot of frustration for just the team and the players and everyone. So we learned a lot from that, and so what we try to do now is just like, of course, we need to have deadlines, and we need to know when the game is going to be done. But if we approach the deadline and feel like the game isn't done, we still have stuff to do, we want to be able to just like, okay, let's take another 3 weeks. We really, because I think I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, we want a release date, but they also don't want a release date that then gets postponed. And they also don't want a broken game. So that's why we've been a bit on the fence with releasing an actual date, because we just want to have the opportunity to ourselves feel like, is the game done? Are we ready to release it, or do we want to give it another polish? So that's kind of how we're trying.
As a business app developer, I fully appreciate what you just said.
And as fans, we also greatly appreciate that. And I think that's very refreshing to hear. And obviously, so often what we see, and I don't want to use like, big studios, right? Like big dev teams who are okay to push out a game, and then you've got a 16 gig patch immediately following, right? Or day one patches, realizing that, the day it went gold, it wasn't really ready. But I guess as a studio of your size and of your caliber, and the work that you do, how important is that is a full polished game? Like obviously there is, and you mentioned before, there's QA fixes afterwards, there's bug patches potentially that we have to work through, but what level of, I guess, how important is that to you and your brand as an organization?
Well, the thing with day one patches is also that a lot of times there are restrictions on how big patches you can release, and depending on how the game is built, you might have to like you can't send a patch. Some platforms you need to send up the whole game again, and then it's like you said, it could be a huge file just to download straight away. Well, a lot of it is about, since this was such a problem on Zombie Vikings, we felt like if we release another game like this, that won't be good for the brand. That's just how it is. We don't want to be known as a studio that just releases buggy games and then fixes them in patches a couple of weeks later. And that's something we've been really honest about that and talking about that a lot, because I think it's important to just be open with that kind of stuff, because it happens to a lot of studios, and it's just something that is so many people involved in making a game. And there can be so many deadlines from publishers and press, or just yourself, or the time you can afford to take on a game, because every day costs money and people's salary costs money. So every time you postpone a game, it's cost more. So it's like, okay, will this polish the game so much that will give us so much extra sales that it's that we can make sure that it's worth it to work an extra 3 weeks on this, because we're a lot of people here and a lot of people that's working. So it's a lot of, now I don't remember what the initial question was, but it's a lot of things to think about surrounding that, both for the developers and for the marketing team and for community and everything. And so we just try to really analyze the situation from a week-to-week basis and see, like, how much. There are always going to be some kind of patches. People are always going to find bugs. You can't release a game that's 100% bug-free, because people do weird stuff when they play games that we've never thought about testing, So, but for us now, it's been, since we've been through that experience, and it was quite a rough time for us, just seeing the game get lowly scored, and like the big minus thing is the bugs. We really don't want to put ourselves in the position again, because it keeps people from enjoying the game, and it keeps people from really focusing on what they think about the game, and you're just focusing on the bugs. So that's why it's important to us now.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that idea of, there's a statement of like, when is I guess the words I'm looking for is, when is good enough?
Yeah.
Right. Because you could probably, and I think as an organization, as a company, you could spend hours and days upon like, oh, do we get that shading just right? Right. Or if I do, where do you begin to pull the thread on the sweater, and everything unwinds, and now you've just got a woolly mess of a sweater on the floor. Right. And how do you fix that? And I guess maybe how does your company, or how does Zoink and I guess your entire dev team ensure that you do that? Obviously, probably deadlines helps, but how does someone kind of say like, hey, we're good here, move on?
I'm not sure that's our strongest side, actually. We always want to like add more stuff. Klaus always wants to add more stuff. He's like, more things. I think the important thing is just like making sure the whole team is heard, and just really listen to one another. And if one person says stop, maybe that's for a reason, and you really should take that into consideration. And we really try to, because we know in the past sometimes we've been adding stuff way too late in the game. Just like, we're almost done, but now we come up with this new thing that we want to add, and that just messes the whole code up, and it makes everything super hard. And that was kind of what happened to Zombie Vikings, because we decided to add an online mode, and that was just a whole mess. We still have that problem, but we're trying to get better.
Sure.
And just trying to think about like, simple is good. People don't want things to be overcomplicated either. You don't want to have like so many gameplay mechanics that you can't really grasp them. So we just try to get better with every project. And the good thing about working with the EA on FEA is as well that they have so much experience from these kind of things, and they have a really quite strict structure on how you develop a game. Which we definitely have not had. And that's with pros and cons, But for us, that's been a good learning experience to like, this is another way to make a game. And they really haven't been messing with the game at all, but just like the whole planning phase and structure around it has been different. And but it worked out well, I think. So maybe we'll incorporate more of those kind of stuff and just new kinds of planning tools when doing upcoming titles.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you about, what are the takeaways, the lessons that you learn probably from each game, and how have those rolled over, and what is your experience with EA help to do that? And I think you've kind of talked a little bit about that, of kind of tightening up how, planning phase as well. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Zach, any questions from you, buddy? I know I've been talking for the last 45 minutes.
I'm excited for Flipping Death. I'm really looking forward to that. So tell those people to get on it. I don't.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it too. We've been working for Flipping Death for so long now as well. It's it feels like Fee and Flipping Death started development at around the same time.
Mhm.
But then since we had a strict deadline on Fee, some people were moved over to that project, which made the development on Flipping a bit slower. But now people are back, so now it's speeding up again. So yeah, I'm just really excited to release that game.
Yeah.
It's really our baby.
It's really cool. I guess a question with Zoink and Image and Form being sort of having this umbrella corporation. Pardon,
Yeah.
Not no
Wrong-
zombie included.
wrong game.
But like, are there any plans for like crossovers? Like, is that something you guys have talked about? Is that something that you guys think would be like is that something that you're interested in, or I don't know, what are your I guess
We haven't. We
Ted
haven't
meets
discussed-
Rusty.
Oh, I never know what. I never know what Brian and Klaus discuss, of course, on their own secret meetings. But no, we haven't really discussed anything like that yet. We always do some kind of a mention of Image and Form characters in our games. We always throw in some kind of reference to them, just because it's friendly. And they had this what was it called, Zoinconium or something in the Dig 2.
Yeah.
Some kind of
Oh,
stone
that's
or metal or something. Yeah. So I think with us moving in together and becoming closer friends, like just the developers and stuff like that, I'm sure that's gonna increase and just like flip out eventually.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows?
very cool.
That's
Right
fantastic.
on.
Right, so I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure how much you can talk into it because it's probably going more into business politics a little bit. But you know, traditionally, EA hasn't been very Nintendo friendly. You know, we saw what they did with Wii U. You know, they tried it. They literally put Mass Effect 3 out at full price the same week as Mass Effect Trilogy on the other systems at a discount, and surprise, it didn't sell. So, and then they use that as the excuse to we're not even trying. So,
Yeah.
are you able to speak to how is EA kind of waking up again to Nintendo, or are you able to judge from them kind of what their thoughts are, just kind of in general?
I can't speak for what they think about other games, but when we really wanted to do Fia for the Switch, we felt like it would be a great game for the platform. So we just made a Switch build and show them, and just like, hey, look at this, it's really cool and it runs really well. And of course, the Switch is a bit different than the other platform. It's not quite as strong, but it's so great to just being able to have it with you and play Fia under the trees or something. I don't know, out in the woods. No, but and they just like, yeah, let's do it. So the idea came from us, but they were definitely not opposed to it. So I'm just guessing that that means they're not opposed to making more games for Switch. But I wouldn't know. That's just my take.
Okay,
Very
yeah,
cool.
because I think they're relatively happy with how FIFA sold, if I remember right. So I'm hoping maybe we'll get Madden back in Nintendo systems again.
Yeah, and Fia actually, since they have the charts on the Switch, it actually reached the top charts both in Europe and North America. I don't remember which placement, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, FIFA over here in Europe is wicked huge. Like it's mad. Lines up for that one. So excellent. I want to be cautious of your time as well here. Where should people obviously continue to support everything? So I mean, I guess first thing I would say is if you haven't played Stick It to the Man, go buy that.
Yeah.
But Faye, sorry, I keep saying Faye. And I'm sure you got a lot of those people saying different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Is available on every platform. And really is a tremendous game that I really do think is this beautiful crossture of art and gameplay and story, and just a fantastic thing. So I would encourage everyone to go out to whatever platform you're on and pick it up and play this incredible experience. So definitely do that. And then Alex, where else should people be following what you do and what the organization does? And I'm sure you have about 100 Twitter accounts that you could
Yes.
mention for everyone. But where can people be in contact with everything you do?
Yeah, well, we're on Facebook, Zoink Games. We're on YouTube, Zoink Games, and on Twitter, also Zoink Games. And you can also, if you want to follow a bunch of cool Zoink people, we actually have a list that you can find on our Twitter with all the staff that's working here currently. So that there you can find all kinds of professions. So that's quite fun. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's That's Great Alex.
I love that
handle. I'm not sure if it's ironic or if it's just everything I do is great, but that's for everyone to judge for themselves.
I think leaving it open for both is the best.
Yeah, that's my thought too.
Awesome.
So that's our main channels to check us out on. And of course, if you like the Fea soundtrack, you should check it out on Bandcamp and just support Joel, who's created it, because it's really great. And there's been a lot of question about the immersion stuff, and I know we've been saying that we have some stuff coming up. So if you're interested in that, there will be that as well. But just keep an eye on our socials and social accounts, and you'll get all the news.
Oh well, now I'm very interested. I'm hoping for an amiibo, but that's me being hopeful. But I'm super keen to have
I'm hoping for that too.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone is in some way, right?
Well,
so, Alex, thank you.
You have an ulterior motive. You're just trying to boost that amiibo count for your prediction.
No, mine wasn't. They weren't doing any, so that's fine. Alex, thank you so much for joining us, and it's been great talking to you again. And obviously, we'll hope to touch base with you after Flipping Death comes out, and as you guys continue to reveal more of the great plans for both Zoink and Thunderful to partner with you guys to share all the awesome news that you guys do.
Yeah, you can get back when we moved in together and see if we're breaking down from people not pulling down the toilet seats and stuff. We'll see.
That's fantastic. You know, I'm actually, interestingly enough, I may actually be over in your neck of the woods in about 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh,
so,
that's cool.
Maybe we'll see if I can pop by the office and say hi, possibly on a bit of a family vacation. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'll let you know all the great places around here where you can go.
There you go. I love it. Excellent. Well, thanks very much for tuning in, and we greatly appreciate it. Talk to you soon, Alex.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Right.
And there we go. Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex.
Cool.
That was